one of the brightest stars in cabinet today. It's unbelievable how talented this young man is. You know what I mean? He really has a lot of vigor, he has a lot of stamina, and he knows exactly where he wants to go. And he knows what he wants for this country, and he knows what he wants for his constituents. Minister Bean, you ready? Yeah. Minister Bean! Here comes Minister Bean! Let's go! Come on! Give it to him! Because he won't be afraid to give it to you!
Good evening, everyone. When I was asked to bring an introductory song, I decided that I would play The Gladiators, 1983, one of the best cultural roots rock reggae bands in history. And you know what the message was? Get ready. Get ready. Now you're probably wondering what that means. It doesn't just mean winning the next election. We have a longer term vision that's required for our country today. Let me start off by acknowledging Madam Premier. If anything, I'd like to thank you, Madam Premier, because you know me. You know that I like to speak freely. You know that I like to call it as I see it, without apology to anyone. Because I feel, yeah, free up. Because, you know, if it's one thing that's required as leadership, especially today as we enter into, or in the middle of this economic and social tsunami, is that it's absolutely essential that what we say to you is the truth. I personally, I'm not paid enough to lie to you. Do you understand me? Yeah, we are not paid enough to deceive you and lie to you. So I'm going to ask you for your permission. If tonight I could speak briefly, not necessarily fully free, because we do have the media around and we understand the controversy. But I ask for your permission, to speak frankly and straight to the point. You're going to notice that I don't have much to say about the opposition. United Bermuda Party, One Bermuda Alliance, whatever name you want to call. The reason why I don't have much to say about them is because I sit Fridays amongst them. I have seen them take off one shirt and put on another. I have seen it. And I know you have seen it. And I know that you will not be fooled into accepting what amounts to Harry Potter politics, sorcery, trying to fool you into thinking that they're actually something different. Why do people take us for granted? Why do they think that we're stupid? You know what? The best way to refute such claims is to act. You know, I'm delighted to be part of a dynamic candidate selection team from Warwick. My grandmother and my grandfather are from Warwick. In fact, Workman's Club is the watering hole for my grandfather, Dudley Frog Rayner, for those of you who remember him. So it's a privilege and an honor to not only to address you, but also it's been my distinct honor to represent the constituents, residents, and voters of number 26, Ward South Central. I hope and pray, and I know I'm not perfect, but I hope and pray that I have represented your interests in the fullness since I'm being your member of parliament. Yes, I have much work to do, and I can improve on my service to you, and I will improve. In fact, not only is our candidate slate for Warwick strong, our candidate slate for the entire island is strong. Trust me, it's strong. We have that optimum balance of wisdom and youth. Listen, imagine the Progressive Labour Party as a ship heading towards our destiny. Young people never ever forget that our elders, through their blood, sweat, and tears, have allowed me to stand in this position. They took the machete and cut the trail to the cane grass. They built the foundation. They put up the walls. So don't ever think, because you find yourself putting slate on the roof, that you actually built the edifice. And don't ever think that because you put the slate on the roof, that you are going to occupy the building. The occupancy is for the next generation. Don't ever forget it. You see, our elders on our ship is our rudder. They guide us. They direct us. Who lives it knows it. They have lived longer than us. They have experienced more than us. So we should be humble enough to listen to them. Likewise, the youth in the Progressive Labour Party, they are the wind within our sails. They are the energy that's required to propel the ship forward towards our destiny. We will never, ever reach our destiny without the rudder or the wind within the sails. So let there never be an attempt to create a generation gap within our family. Never. Resist it at all levels. Young people, humble yourselves and listen. Old people, reach out and love the youth. The middle generation, let's step up and be responsible and take care of both of them. There's no more excuse. Let's do what we can do for ourselves instead of relying on the government to do for us. After 14 years of government, certainly after some trial and error, which is natural, and admittedly, we have made some mistakes. And certainly, we have a long list of accomplishments. I'm not going to bore you with the accomplishments because you already know what they are. But we have done it. We have delivered on those accomplishments. But yet, we are humble enough to say, you know, we can improve. And improve we will. But there's no doubt in my mind, regardless of what we've been through, the Progressive Labour Party, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, represents the best opportunity, the best institution to guide and govern this country in the future. Don't ever forget that. As a result, my focus tonight isn't on winning the election. No slogans, no light talk. In fact, I have a question that I have asked some of my colleagues. Yes, I understand that we're ramping up for the election. Yes, I understand that we have to go out and canvass and knock on doors. But tell me this, what happens when we win the next election? What is our plan? What is our vision going forward? In other words, we cannot look at life. We cannot look at political activities in just a short-term scope. We have to be far-sighted. We have to be able to understand that the actions of today will have ramifications for tomorrow. We must connect the dots. You know what? I don't think that the people and voters of this country deserve anything less. In fact, that's your expectation. I could sit up and talk about our accomplishments, but the reality is when you are voted into government, doing good is expected. We shouldn't be sitting up saying, yeah, we did this, we did that. But guarantee when we do wrong, we will be reminded. In other words, it's a thankless job. Service to our fellow men. It's thankless. But at the same time, we have to understand that no matter what we have been through, we can and we will go through adversity and come out all the better. It's nothing new that we've been through. So you know what? Let's focus briefly on what is to be expected in the future for our party and our government. For those of you who had the opportunity to attend last week's banquet, at some point a video was shown, and there was a gentleman who spoke. For our elders, you will know him as Mr. Eugene Woods. I think he was a former chairman of the party. Did you hear his words? You know what he spoke of? He said, we have been to the mountaintop, we've been through the swamp, we've been through and what shed the blood and the sweat and the tears. But you know what? We still have unfinished business. I said, well, what's the unfinished business, Elder? Talk to me. He spoke of empowerment. Unfinished business from the early 1980s. Still unfinished business today. So no matter how much work was done, we still have work to do. So let's discuss briefly empowerment. Empowerment. Ancient wisdom, an old adage says that as a man thinketh, he becometh. As we think, we act. There's nothing we do without it first entering into our mind. This applies to the individual, and it also applies to the group. So I'm going to appeal to you that now is the time to renew our thinking. If we're looking for true change and true empowerment, we must first empower our minds. We must understand what course we have to take to reach to our destiny. True empowerment will never, ever, ever be given to you by the government. True empowerment starts from within, regardless of what government is in power. True empowerment starts within, and it starts with our culture. That's a word that our younger generation really don't know too much about. But our older generation, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I speak about culture. It's time for cultural and economic renewal. Renewal means implicitly that this isn't something new, it's just something that we have forgotten. We need to remember what it took to get us to this point. That's what renewal means. And you know what else? Empowerment is the complete opposite of dependency. Now let me be frank. When was integration? In the 60s? Enlighten me, elders, please. When did we become integrated? Sometime in the 60s, right? 69, 70. Right. So let me start right there. From 1969 to 1970, our people, we were dependent on Front Street. And you know what? I'm sure I don't have to speak for you because you went through it. You know the trials and tribulations of having to deal and be dependent on Front Street. So 1998 comes, and for many of us, it was liberation from Front Street. For most of us, it was a new page. It was an opportunity to finally press forward. But some of us decided that in 1998, instead of leaving the dependency of Front Street, we decided we would become dependent on government. I don't care if it's corporate welfare or social welfare, dependency is dependency. The opposite of dependency is freedom. So when you hear me say free up, that's just a simple phrase to say it's time to have a free society in this country. You see, there's a question that we have to face at this point in time. Do we want freedom or do we want equality? You can't have both. Freedom or equality. Equality means that someone else is setting a benchmark for you to aspire towards. But what if that benchmark limits our potential? Who says that I need to be equal to the next person when in fact I could be far greater than the next person? Who says we have to be equal as a group to other persons in this country when in fact we could be greater than other people in this country? What do you want? Freedom or equality? That's a serious question, you know. Because when we're seeking equality, we turn to government. We expect government to take measures, to take from some to give to others. Let me tell you something. Going forward, we can eat food, we can do for self without taking from other people. I'm going to say this now, I'm going to say it at the end. It's time to mind our business. And for those who are aspiring to leadership or leaders today, let me explain something to you about dependency and welfare. Don't ever offer to someone what you are not willing to accept yourself. Do not position or place someone with a lower income bracket or through choices in life find themselves with their backs up against the wall. Do not put them in a box. If you can't help them, don't hurt them. Don't feed them, teach them how to fish. You know what the ancient maxims and whatnot, the principles. But when we speak of culture, it starts from within. And when we get it right, it should emanate within our family. And that then should expand to our community. And that should expand to our country. Notice I haven't mentioned government at all. Self, family, community, country. Ask ourselves, have we been negligent or not in terms of withholding our own culture, taking care of our families, strengthening our communities, and participating at a high level in the future growth of our country? You cannot rely on 36 people sitting up in the House of Assembly. We as 36 do not know everything. And you know that. Many hands make light work. Another maxim that I would like to share, old timers, I would like to remind us, is that the Lord helps those who help themselves. Nothing new under the sun, you know. And so let's talk about cultural empowerment. Let me give an example of our cultural neglect. After the abolition of slavery, after emancipation, we did not have anything So as a result, we created institutions within the Friendly Society movement, the Ord Fellows, and the Daughters of Ruth, and whatnot. The principle that underpinned the Friendly Society movement was mutual aid and relief. The Sunshine League emanated out of the Friendly Society movement. It came as a result of citizens just like you looking at issues in regards to young people, orphans. And instead of running to government, they decided that they will pool their resources together, create an institution that will provide the social services for their own children. Notice that the Sunshine League was created in spite of government. So why is it now, after going through economic difficulties and the Sunshine League closes, that the government gets blamed? Now I understand the politics of it, but I'm going to tell you, it's not the government to blame for the Sunshine League's closing. We as a people are to blame. Why should we push off our responsibility for being our brother's keeper at the community level? This is the glue that kept us as a people. Why should we push that off and expect government to do it? It's reprehensible. Our thinking has to change. In terms of economics, me and my wifey, I can say that now. Me and the wife, we went grocery shopping. We went grocery shopping. Up to, you know, one of the grocery stops up the street. You know, call no names. But I'll tell you what, when we got to the cash register, and the lady tallied it all up, and I looked, guess what? It said $350 for 5 bags of groceries. Now, my wife, she's from Bahamas, so for her, that's a shock. Like, what on earth? 5 bags for $350. That's the reality that we're living in. Prices are rising. Food is becoming more expensive. But then I turn to my wife and I say, you know what, wifey? Child, we shouldn't complain. In fact, this is an opportunity for us to compete. And that's another message that I'm bringing tonight. For economic empowerment, we need to stop complaining, start cooperating, and start competing. Don't blame marketplace for their prices. Do not blame lenders or Mr. Arnold for his prices. It's a businessman. If you want it, you could buy it. If you don't, then go somewhere else. Yeah. And yes, some of you will say, well, you know, we had a supermarket once. You know. And you know, it was the co-op. And today it's no longer there. So some mistakes were made. All right, as a government, we made mistakes. But should we just fill up shop and lie down dead? No, because the co-op was formed, it rose, and now it's no longer in existence. Should that prevent us, as a people, banding back together again? You put your 100 in, I put my 100 in. Let's create our own supermarket, and let's start taking care of ourselves, man. Is it difficult? Of course it is difficult, but nothing worth anything comes easy. Don't complain to me about the prices. Don't ask for price controls, because ultimately that will just raise prices even more. Let's start to cooperate with one another so we could be competitive. I don't mind investing $1,000 with all of you all into a new supermarket. And you know what? I have no problem spending at that point $3,000–4,000 a year on my grocery bill, if I know that at the end of the year I'm going to get a dividend check back. In other words, you're buying from yourself. It's simple. Let's not complain, let's compete. Another point that I'd like to make, and you probably heard me say this before. We are a labor government. If we are pro-labor, then we must be pro-business. And if people are pro-business, then they must be pro-labor. Now we know, and the Bermuda Industrial Union will attest, that you have employers who are unscrupulous. They will try to nickel and dime you to death. We understand that. But you know what? That comes as a result of a historical antagonism, and rightly so, because of the grievance that were meted out on us as a people. And in fact, it might not even be historical. It actually today is a living reality. If you ask the union, they will say we still have issues in terms of fair pay for a fair day's work. But you know, to have that antagonism actually limits our potential. It limits the next generation from moving and taking the risk of entrepreneurship. Because we're telling them that the businessman is not our friend. I'll tell you what, I'd rather Mr. Fairbairn of the BIU go and sit down and negotiate labor issues with an entrepreneur from within this room who hires your own people than someone else. I'm sure that whatever issues there is can be rectified. No doubt. So we must, if we're pro-labor, become pro-business. When we say business, unfortunately, the majority of our people have been taught to think that business means international business and Front Street. Today, I say no longer shall that be. International business, let them be. We benefit from it, trickle-down wise. Front Street, let them be. Let's mind our business and start creating and developing our own private sector, the third stream of business in this country. And you know, I started my reasoning at 1969. For those of you old enough to realize that before 1969, we had our own newspaper, the Recorder, we had our own bakeries, we had our own everything. So there's nothing new under the sun. I'm not presenting to you something that just fell out of the sky. I'm just reminding us of the compass required to get us to our destiny. I have a few more notes. Because if I free it up, it will be a whole night. Trust me, I have a lot to say. But as a government, if we're going to help facilitate the development of a private sector, because I'm going to tell you, governments cannot create jobs. It's a myth. Okay? Not productive, sustainable jobs. We must, as a government, facilitate the development of our own private sector. And by doing that, we must expand markets from Bermuda. Number one is the Caribbean. We haven't had a direct link to the Caribbean, and half of us come through St. Kitts, the other half come through Tex, the other half come from Barbados, but we haven't had a direct link to the Caribbean for like donkey's years, 20 or 30 years. But you know, that's our family down south. So if we're going to develop a private sector, it's not just to be a small businessman. We have the potential to be mid-sized, large, and international business people too. By going into the Caribbean, we have a market that expands from 60,000 people to 20 million people. Think about it. That is the potential. Our government will work in the future, once we are re-elected, to ensure that we have direct connectivity back to the Caribbean. Without that cultural connection, there is no basis for economic development. I'm going to close with this. Our elders have worked diligently for us to get to this point. My generation, we understand that our heritage is clear and it's concise. It's a heavy heritage. But my question is, what inheritance will we pass on to the next generation? Is it a legacy that's going to be worth inheriting? Remember, you dug the foundation, we put on the slate, but the occupancy of the edifice is for the future generation. We are not living and acting for ourselves. We must look at the bigger picture. We must be more farsighted. Ladies and gentlemen, you also notice in closing that I made no mention of race, because there is no need to mention race. When we speak about culture, we transcend race. We start talking about identity. We start talking about history. We start talking about our value system. So for me, I'm not going to mention race. What I do know is that respect is earned. A man respects you when you respect yourself. And even if he doesn't want to respect you, so be it, because you're respecting yourself. Let us redouble our efforts to love and respect ourselves. Let's not look outside ourselves and blame others for our predicament. We need to become the masters of our own destiny. Brothers and sisters, let's strengthen ourselves. Let's prepare to go to political battle. It's not just the 36 candidates that consist of a government. It's the entire party. We need all hands on deck right now. Our business is unfinished. The only way that we will progress, the only way we ensure that them other people never ever have another opportunity to even think that they could become government again. Never ever. It's not only becoming the masters of our own destiny, but brothers and sisters, it is time to mind our own business. PLP, all the way, PLP.
Thank you, Minister B. Thank you, Minister B. Thank you, thank you, thank you.